Wrestling fans, are you ready? For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, let's get ready to rumble!
And now, please welcome at this time your hosts, Graham GSM Matthews and RJ Marceau. You're listening to the next era of wrestling radio. This is WrestleRant Radio.
Back in WrestleRant Radio for Thursday, June 20th, 2024. First day of summer. We're well on the road to WWE SummerSlam coming up in early August. Some AEW talk as well, and a lot more in between. Mr. Marceau, brother, how you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing good. We're coming off a Clash at the Castle last week, and I do want to start with that as we get started here. Of course, new episodes available every single week on WrestleRant.com, WrestleRantRadio.com, all your usual podcast platforms. Rate the show, review the show, subscribe to the show. Never miss new episodes every single Thursday. Next week, we'll be talking Forbidden Door predictions for AEW, New Japan, Stardom, CMLL, whoever else is going to be involved in that pay-per-view next weekend. That's coming up next weekend. Like I said, this past week we had WWE Clash at the Castle. Another very good show from WWE, this time in Glasgow, Scotland. They're on an international run right now between Glasgow. They were in Saudi late last month for the King and Queen of the Ring pay-per-view. 3 weeks before that, they were in France, and in less than 3 weeks, actually 2 weeks from this coming weekend, we already have Money in the Bank. So, not a big fan of the 3-week windows in between pay-per-views. I hope they kind of slow it down after SummerSlam, and I think they will to an extent. I know Bash in Berlin is also in August, but it's a 4-week difference on August 31st and August 3rd, I think. So, not a quick turnaround time, same calendar, and the same month in the calendar, but 4-week difference. And then there's also talk of another pay-per-view in early October. I'll ask you about that later, that they might be bringing back, actually, for the first time in about 25, 30 years, whatever it's been. But Clash of the Castle last week, and before we get into the individual matches, Mr. Marceau, what were your overall impressions of the pay-per-view from last Saturday in Glasgow?
I thought it was a solid show, like you said. I thought it started off hot with Cody and AJ, and then ended with Damian and Drew, and I thought in between was pretty good. Had the crowd going, and I think obviously having more Scottish wrestlers definitely, I think, popped the crowd more than it probably would have if it was anywhere else, because I think some of the teams or people wrestling if it wasn't in their hometown, I don't think people would have cared as much, but I think they executed well with that, and I thought the first and ending matches were good, and kind of set the tone for the whole show.
What were your thoughts on the crowd throughout the show? We had a pretty lively atmosphere in Lyon, France for Backlash last month. The Saudi crowd was pretty good as well, in Saudi Arabia and Jeddah specifically. I think it was Jeddah. I don't think it was Riyadh. But yeah, they were a pretty good crowd at the last pay-per-view, and then on this show they were also great. So does the atmosphere at these shows kind of enhance your overall enjoyment of the events the same way it does for me and other people?
Yeah, I think this one was like a little toned down from the Lyon, France one, which I kind of preferred. Like, They definitely did do their chanting and stuff, but I think it was more like peeled back a little bit. It wasn't over the top like the Lyon one. Like the Lyon one, they would cheer for like anybody. At least this one, they're kind of more cheering for the baby faces, and it wasn't like constant. Like they did do, like they kind of toned down a little bit. So overall, I thought it was a solid crowd. Like, so I think it enhanced most of the matches. If it was anywhere else, I don't think they would have been as, like, I don't know if good is the right word, but they wouldn't have been as, like, exciting as they were.
Yeah, they definitely would not have been as, like, enthusiastic or as lively as they were for some of these matches on the show, which overall definitely made the show better, which was already going to be good anyway based on the match quality for a lot of these matches. It was a 5-match card. But yeah, the overall show I thought was fun for what it was. It was another quick 3-hour show, only 5 matches. I hope they maintain this format. If they want to expand it, obviously, for like SummerSlam, that's totally fine. I expect them to. I know they're doing a 2-day formula for SummerSlam starting in 2026. I don't think they're going to be doing that this year. They would have announced SummerSlam as a 2-night show already, and they haven't. Maybe next year, but if they want to do... I mean, the 2-night thing we've already talked about for SummerSlam. I'm not personally a fan. I know you're kind of skeptical as well. But for these other shows that they want to maintain the 5-match format, maybe a pre-show match, that's totally fine to me. It makes the shows better. But we kick off the show, Cody Rhodes, AJ Styles, and I Quit match for the Undisputed WWE Championship. Another top-notch match from these two. I thought this was really well done. Not always a fan of the I Quit matches, and you know too. I mean, some of these matches, they spend the entire time, especially when the match isn't overly interesting, they just spend the entire match yelling, "Do you quit? No, I don't quit. Do you quit? No, I don't quit." And then it's just on and on for like fucking 25, 30 minutes, and it's just excessive. Like, I remember they did that with, and it wasn't a bad match, but Jack Swagger and Del Rio like 10, 11 years ago. It's like, man, like, this shit is awful. I mean, it's just the same thing over and over and over again. John Cena, Batista, the same thing from 12, 13, 14 years ago, whatever it was, 2010, I think it was. This was better, though. I thought these guys had a great match. They did less of the whole screaming into the microphone thing. Got blood. Both of them did, which is a nice change of pace. I think Cody was bloodied up, or obviously I know he was bloodied up before Mania by The Rock, so they don't do it too often, but they kind of keep it special. They kind of pick their spots, which I like. We saw both men get bloodied up here, and then Cody Rhodes about to hit AJ Styles with the steel steps, then he quits, and Cody Rhodes hits him with it anyway, like Matt Hardy got put through the table by Jeff Hardy when he quit in their match about 15 years ago, and Jeff Hardy put him through the table regardless, like a great babyface, I guess, but still a well-done matchup. Cody Rhodes decisively retaining his Undisputed WWE Championship. There was a post-match angle as well. I'll get to that in a second. But your thoughts on the actual match between Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles?
I thought it was a solid start to the show. I liked how they didn't always go to the mic and be like, "I quit, I don't quit." Like, I feel like in past matches that has kind of droned on, especially if the match isn't overly exciting. But I thought these two had a good match. Styles looked really good. I mean, he had Cody like... I feel like obviously the outcome was never in doubt. Like, Cody was definitely going to win, but like there were points that like, is Cody just going to like die? Like, is AJ going to kill him? Like, there were points that like he was beating up Cody really well, and obviously Cody's just a great seller, so he kind of enhanced that. But as an overall match, I thought it was good. AJ, like you said, quitting when he goes to hit him with the steel steps, hits him anyways, like a great babyface would. And then like I said, we got the post match stuff with the bloodline. But overall, I thought it was a good match. I didn't think we were going to get extended after Backlash, but the whole retirement comeback, and then this, I thought it was a good kind of continuance of the feud, a good blow off. And now, like I said, we're going seemingly into some bloodline stuff, so we'll see what happens from here.
I'm glad they got another match out of it. I thought their first match was awesome. This match was also really, really good. I was kind of hoping for like a slightly indecisive finish, so they could stretch it out for another show. That's not where they're going with it. AJ quit pretty decisively. You can't go back to the match if that was to be the case, and it was. And then we found out who was kind of next and what was next for Cody afterward anyway. So it is what it is, but I thought the match was great. So post-match, Cody Rhodes celebrating in the aisleway. Out comes Solo Sikoa behind him, ambushing him the Bloodline Tangaloa, attacking Cody when Randy Orton and Kevin Owens make the save. So two different directions they can go in here. I guess technically both they could do. One, it looks like we are getting at some point Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa for the WWE title. I mean, necessarily it doesn't have to happen, but I think it would be weird if you do the six-man but not Cody and Solo. So that looks to be a thing. Now the question is, do they save or do they do Cody and Solo for SummerSlam? Or do they do it at Money in the Bank in the inevitable six-man tag team match, which also looks likely? Do you do that on TV instead, with Cody teaming with Orton and Owens against the Bloodline? So where do you think this is going as far as how do you think and where this is playing out? And what would you like to see? How would you like to see it play out?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different directions they can go in. I don't know if I would say as early as Money in the Bank. I mean, it's only a couple weeks away. Maybe that's where you do the six-man, and then we get Solo and Cody down the line. But, I mean, I'm surprised Solo is not even in the Money in the Bank. I mean, he's seemingly, I don't think he's even in the qualifiers to be in Money in the Bank. I mean, I guess they probably don't want him to lose. But I think you do the 6-man first, and then you do him and Cody, like SummerSlam or after Money in the Bank.
I guess that's the question. Is that to you a SummerSlam-worthy attraction, Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa for the WWE Championship? To me, it's not. I mean, it could be Cody Rhodes and, no offense, but Baron Corbin. Like, that's not a SummerSlam-worthy match. But Cody and Solo, even for as much as they've attempted to rebuild Solo, currently, to me, is not WWE title-worthy for that show. Now, it would not headline the show. I imagine you could even headline the show with Drew and Punk. If Punk is cleared by then, we'll get to that later. That's a non-title match. You could go on last with that if you wanted to. I don't think Cody and Solo would even come close to being on last. That just to me right now does not feel like a WWE Championship program, but do you feel differently?
I think so. I mean, I think Solo's obviously, the Bloodline's still the biggest thing on SmackDown. He's kind of the guy. I mean, I don't hate it. It's not like it's my number one match, but I think that's a better match than like Drew and Gunther, honestly. I mean,
it is. I mean,
so as like
yeah.
a title match, I don't hate it. I know what's going to happen, so I mean, eventually, might as well just do it then.
Well, I guess my point is, Cody and Solo is fine. It's not a bad match. It's not a match I'm overly excited for, but it makes sense. It's a solid match. It works. I think when you consider the alternative of what could be at that show instead with Cody and Randy Orton, I guess that's kind of my point. I would imagine you would rather see that match. Or do you not really worry about that, like with what other people are saying? Like, I don't want to see Cody and Solo because I would rather see Cody and Orton. Are you not really in that same boat because you realize that, or you think that it might not be a realistic possibility to get that match in program so soon? Or do you think the 6-man happening at Money in the Bank could lead to Orton attacking Cody and maybe we get that match at SummerSlam?
It's possible, but then it's like, what do you do with Solo then? Like, I'm just going to face like Owens or something. I do like Cody. I think obviously Cody and Rhodes, Cody and Randy is the, that's like kind of like the money match besides Roman and Rock for Cody. But I just feel like now, like, I mean, I guess you could pivot in that direction, but I just don't think that's going to happen this soon. If anything, honestly, like, depending on when Cody loses the belt, maybe we could do that next year. I mean, depending on how much longer Randy is, but like, they're both baby faces. Doesn't really seem like they're on the wrong page. It just feel like it'd be weird, like within a month that they pivot and it's him and Randy. It seems like they said it's gonna be Cody and Solo. I mean, I wouldn't hate Randy and Cody, but like they'd have to kind of get to it quick.
Well, I guess that begs my other question as far as what do you do with Solo? Do you see Roman Reigns returning by SummerSlam, whether it be at Money in the Bank, on SmackDown before then, to set up a Roman Solo match at SummerSlam or whatever Roman's going to do? It doesn't have to be Roman and Solo when he gets back. I saw people saying yesterday, Roman unfollowed Solo Sikoa on Instagram. Like, anyone gives a fuck. Like, that really means much, I guess. But could we be getting that match at SummerSlam? And do you think Roman's back in the next couple of weeks, I guess is my question. Or do you think it's too soon?
I think he should be on the show in some kind of... No, I think I would probably think, like, after WrestleMania, SummerSlam would be, like, the first time he comes back. I mean, if that's like I said, if they do Randy and Cody, I mean, Solo and Roman would make the most sense. But, like I said, he would have to come back to TV pretty soon. I mean, it's almost only a month away. So, I mean, I don't hate the idea, but you'd kind of, like I said, I don't want them, like, rush Cody and Randy and then rush Roman and Solo, and there's only really a month out.
Yeah, they have 4 weeks in between Money in the Bank and SummerSlam, but it wouldn't need to make sense. I mean, listen, we got Rollins returning on Monday's Raw this past week, so I guess anything is possible. Anyone could pop up between now and SummerSlam. Roman Reigns could very well be next. I don't think he will be, in my personal opinion. I do not think Roman is back before SummerSlam. He could come back maybe at SummerSlam the same way he did 4 years ago. I could maybe see that happening. But other than that, I don't think they rush into that so quickly. And it wouldn't even necessarily be rushing. I think Roman and Solo right now could work at this stage of the storyline with the Bloodline. We still have yet to see Jacob Fatu, by the way, so they still have that ace up their sleeve as well. The rumor of Hikuleo coming in, the brother of Tama Tonga, and I think Tonga Loa. I don't know if they're brothers or cousins. I forgot what the relation is between the three of them. But I know they recently trademarked Tala Tonga, Talla, which I guess it's a double meaning because the fact the guy is tall, I guess. He's the tallest one of the three. I don't know. But Hikuleo's been in AEW before, TNA, so people would probably know him from that. New Japan, obviously, as well. He's obviously on his way in, I would have to imagine, and he's going to be given that name, and he might be interfering in the next fucking pay-per-view, so time will tell. But yeah, there's a lot of different directions that can go in. I'm kind of curious to see how it plays out starting on SmackDown tomorrow night. Sami Zayn beating Chad Gable again, decisively defeating Gable, ending the feud for the Intercontinental Championship. Gable's hopes of becoming champion are over. It is finished. He is not getting that fucking title, at least not anytime soon. I know he might want to qualify in Money in the Bank. I mean, the fact that he got murdered on Monday notwithstanding, we'll talk about that later. I don't think that's happening either. I don't even think Gable gets in the match, but if he were able to get in the match, I don't even think he's winning it. So I think the idea of him as champion is over. And it's very disappointing. The guy just resigned. We found that over the weekend, which is great. I know where they're going with Sammy next, and it's cool. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But just talk about, first of all, the match itself. I thought it was a really good match. The stuff with Otis and Maxine and Gable really took center stage, and they played it out on Monday's Raw as far as the aftermath, where it went, blah, blah, blah. It was good. It was well done. The people were into it. I just hate that the feud is ending without Gable winning the championship a single time. But what are your thoughts on the whole thing?
No, I think, to take a Cornette phrase, he's like the spare prick at the wedding. Like, guys just, you think he's going to win, and then nothing happens. I mean, he busted his ass. I feel like he was one of the biggest things over on Raw, and he lost clean like 5 times. Like, talking about a guy that doesn't win the big one or a B-plus player, Jesus Christ. I mean, I understand they had a direction they're going in, but I don't know. I feel like you could have maybe put the belt on once at least. I don't know. I like Gable. I like what they were doing with him and like the whole Alpha Academy. It seemed like one of the more focal points on Raw, and then he just lost again clean. Like, I don't get it. I kind of feel bad for the guy, but yeah, it's kind of mind-boggling. But I guess it just wasn't in the books.
I guess not. I mean, just for as over as he was and still is to a certain degree, as well as the heel, and as a heel and with the heel heat that he's getting, you would think that he would have won the championship at least once. Obviously, they had different plans. I kind of figured he was losing. I was holding out hope that he could win here, but I kind of figured if they're going to do Gable and Otis, it's not going to be over the Intercontinental Championship. I still do think we are getting Gable and the Creeds. I think that's inevitable. It could happen as soon as next Monday's Raw. Ivy Nile might be a part of it as well, and that's fine. I don't think she needs to, but if they want to put her in there, that's okay. It's not like she's doing much on her own anyway. But, yeah, Chad Gable loses again. Again, maybe at some point down the road he could become champion, but certainly will not be happening anytime in the foreseeable future. Bit of a surprising result on the show. I mean, I thought if any championship would change hands, it would be the women's tag titles. I mean, I did think there was a chance Drew could win the World Heavyweight Championship. I didn't think these two women would win on the show, but they did. They got a great pop for it, too. Alba Fyre, Isla Dawn winning the WWE Women's Tag Team titles, beating Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, and Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark. The match itself wasn't very good. Honestly, in my personal opinion, they kind of had their fair share of sloppy spots and just some awkward moments, specifically Jade Cargill. Again, I know the shaky ring ropes were partially to blame for that. I know I saw AJ had commented on it with the referee at the beginning of his match at the start of the show. Damian had his problem in the main event. So it wasn't really entirely her fault, but like Jade Cargill visibly tapping out at one point, and the commentators, it was bad enough and apparent enough where they even had to acknowledge it. And now they're incorporating that into the story with Shayna and Zoe feeling like they were cheated out of the titles. So that's fine. But yeah, I just thought it wasn't a great match. So it ends out of nowhere with Alba Fyre, or rather Isla Dawn, picking up the pinfall win. We got new tag team champions. The crowd wasn't quiet for the match, but it was pretty clear they didn't really give a shit, and I don't blame them. This division means nothing. The titles mean nothing. The match wasn't very good. But they did go nuts when they realized, holy shit, our hometown girls just won the titles, for whatever that means. But it was a nice moment for them. Alba Fyre's been through a lot lately, like family-wise. Triple H said in the post-show press conference they didn't put the belts on him for that reason. I'm glad he acknowledged that. He just thought, he just said, oh, they deserve it. It was that they've worked for this. And I'm thinking, I mean, I'm not saying they haven't, but I'm just thinking, well, if you really wanted to put the belts on them, I guess this was a good time to do it. But at the same time, I can't recall a single match they have ever won on the main roster. And they've been on the main roster for well over a year now. They were drafted in 2023. They were NXT Women's Tag Team Champions for a little while, and that was over a year ago. They have done jack shit. There was like a 6 or 7 to 8 month period where they weren't even on television, and it went absolutely nowhere. So I don't know what they're talking about with that, what Triple H was referring to exactly, but it was a nice moment if nothing else. So I know you're a big Alba Fyre fan. You were happy when she won here. What were your thoughts on the match and the title change?
Oh, I went crazy. I mean, big fan of Fyre. She's just Dawn, but I love Fyre a lot. I do like also like throughout the match, like the commentary is just like, oh yeah, she's won all these titles at NXT UK, but you've probably never seen that because she's never on fucking TV. But Jade, like you said, Jade looked horrible again. I don't even know. I don't know. Maybe it's just not for her. I feel like once the match gets to a certain length, I don't know if she doesn't remember what she's supposed to do, but like the spots just get sloppier, and I don't know. I really don't. She still needs more work. Holy smokes! But I'm happy they placed that Fyre and Dawn winning. And I mean, at the end of the day, does it really mean a ton? No, because the belts really don't mean anything. Like they were on Raw in a fucking pre-tape, but besides that, they weren't even on the show. Felt very Vince McMahon-esque. Like, never won a belt, and never win a match, and just randomly win the titles out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. I get they were in Scotland, but I don't know, maybe you could pump them up a little bit. They just lost on Raw last week to Shayna and Zoe in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you have them win the belts in 5 days later. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Like you said, Triple H mentioned like they're hard workers. Like I mean everyone's a hard worker. Chad Gable's a hard worker, I bet.
Yep.
Doesn't mean you just give him a belt, but like I said, I think I hope they actually like see the potential in Fyre. I think as a single star, she can be like a top women's wrestler. They just really haven't given her the opportunity yet. I'm hoping like maybe this tag team run, maybe kind of if they're actually on TV, can shine that. Because I feel like in this match, she did kind of have like a couple of spots that were just clearly her, and people were like, "Whoa, like look what she can do." I'm like, "You've been missing this for 5 years." I mean. It's not like this has come out of nowhere. She's been, like I said, she was an NXT Women's Champion. She had like a 600-day reign. She had a ton of great matches. Yeah. And then she's kind of got repackaged with the whole 2.0 and been stuck with a stupid Fyre thing gimmick. But glad they won. But book them. I'll believe that they have any. I'll wait to see if they actually book them at all. Because like I said, they were on Raw in a pre-tape. They weren't even they didn't even wrestle. So. We'll see what happens with them.
Well, at least they established what was next for them. I mean, it's not a feud I give a shit about or a match I give a shit about, but Shayna and Zoe getting the next shot makes sense given the circumstances of the match and the fact they beat them the week before and the fact their match was interrupted with Bianca and Jade a few weeks ago by Isla, Dawn, and Alba Fyre. But I guess to your point, I know we're questioning it. I can definitively tell you they are absolutely not going to do shit with these two women or those titles. This is not a turning point for them. I would like it to be, but maybe Alba Fyre on her own, they can, come around on the idea that she could potentially be something on her own. But I don't know. I think people thinking that these two women all of a sudden are going to get a newfound push out of nowhere are going to be sorely mistaken. I think there's a better chance that they turn around and put the belts right back on Bianca and Jade at Money in the Bank than anything else. I think that would be pretty possible. Do you think this leads to Bianca and Jade one-on-one at SummerSlam at that quickly, or do you think they kind of hold off on that for right now?
I mean, it wasn't like they had any kind of. I mean, unless they do a rematch and there was some kind of miscommunication and they start blaming each other, but I mean. They kind of just lost here. There wasn't really any kind of teamwork kerfluffle, I guess is the right way to say it. But I guess if they do a rematch and maybe someone accidentally hits someone and they start getting mad and that kind of turns them. But with how Jade was in the ring here, I don't know if I really want to see her and Bianca one-on-one at SummerSlam. But I mean, it would be a big match, but I think maybe you hold off a little bit longer.
I talked about it on Wednesday's hashtag. Are you ready to call it quits on Jade in the ring? Or do you, as far as putting her back in NXT, not even back, she wasn't really there, but putting her in NXT first? I know you mentioned her in-ring progress or lack thereof, and you don't think she's still very good, which is totally understandable. how do you assess that? Like, are you still willing to give her a chance, or like, what do you think they should do with her? When I said give her a chance, I mean give her more time to get better, I guess.
No, yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I mentioned basically watching the WCW, Who Killed WCW, and they basically were talking about, like, with Goldberg, it's like, once the aura is gone and he can't wrestle, like, it kind of fell apart from there, and I feel like that's kind of what, honestly, Jade's kind of following that same kind of trajectory. Like, yeah, she's, like, statuesque, she's got the look, she's big, she can hit, like, basically the same thing as Goldberg, hit the pump kick and hit the jaded move, but besides that, I mean, it's rough. And like I said, the more you see her, like, one-on-one or see her kind of exposed, it's going to be like, people are going to be like, oh, she just can't wrestle. So I think you still obviously give her more time. I mean, they probably gave her a ton of money, but I mean, I just feel like maybe just, like, try to highlight her strengths more than her weaknesses. I don't know, like, once you get into longer matches, it's kind of harder to do that. And obviously, if she's, like, going for the women's championship, she's not going to have, like, 2-minute matches. So she's eventually going to have to learn, or you're going to have to move on. But I don't know. She is a project, but it's just, like, when eventually you pull the plug. Like, I don't know. I feel like the crowd hasn't really turned on her yet. I think if the crowd starts, like, turning on her, then maybe they'll have to reassess. But for now, I would just keep her in the tag team with Belair, and hopefully she just gets better.
Well, yeah, that was my next point. As far as we're seeing these botches now, these are tag team matches. I mean, she's kind of limited to a certain extent in these matches, and she's still having noticeable botches, regardless of what the instance is. Like I said, the ropes are to blame. At Backlash, she didn't have a great night. There really wasn't anyone to blame in that situation other than her. They also weren't really on the same page as the Kabuki Warriors. Sorry, go ahead.
Could you say, like, the botches, though? Could you say, like, the botches in a sense, though, or when she's getting the hot tag, maybe she's just a little too ramped up, and with her inexperience, that's causing a lot of the issues? Like, obviously, in a one-on-one match, she's not going to be, like, hopping over the rope and trying to hit all these big moves, like, I think that's honestly half her problem. I feel like a lot of her botches do come in now she gets the hot tag. She's, like, hopping over the top rope, and she's, like, trying to do the splash and the kick, and it just... maybe it's just too much for her inexperience, and that's kind of getting in her head. Like, she's trying to think of the spots, and she's overthinking it, and that's when she's just, like, kicking and flailing and all that stuff. So, honestly, maybe that is half the problem, but...
Yeah.
Because, like, honestly, she had matched in AEW, and I don't remember them being that bad.
Yeah.
But I think maybe that's a problem. Like, she's just getting too excited, or it's just too, like, the spots are just coming too quick. When a singles match, you kind of flesh it out a little longer. So, I mean, I think, like I said, she had matches in AEW. They weren't like they were amazing, but they weren't like horrible. Like, I don't remember having that many botches by the end of her run. But maybe she just needs more time, like, as a tag team, or just needs to just, like, slow down a little bit. I don't know. It's interesting.
No, that's a good theory, because she never worked, to my knowledge, a single tag team match in AEW. It was all single stuff or multi-women stuff, battle royals and shit. She never worked any tag team matches, because that was the whole, she was on the Goldberg run. So far it's been the exact opposite, where she's had a match or two that have been singles. She was in the Queen of the Ring tournament and whatnot, but, she made it to the semifinals or the quarterfinals, whatever. But she's primarily worked tag team matches, and I think that's kind of where the issues have happened. I think you make a great point, where she gets too excited. I said this yesterday or on Wednesday or whatever. Is there really any reason for her to be jumping off the top rope, doing springboard moves? I mean, I don't know if she's 7 feet tall, but she's pretty fucking tall. I mean, why would she need to be doing that shit? It was the same thing. I know it was a rope issue with Damian, but it was the same thing. I said to myself the same exact thing during that match in the main event. Why is Damian needing to do flips over the top rope anyway? The guy's like almost 7 feet tall, if not 7 feet tall. That just doesn't make any sense to me, and I feel like that's where a lot of these problems kind of come from with people like her or Jade or whatever. I'm sorry, with Jade or with Damian, where they just get too ambitious for their own good. And it's not just the taller people. I mean, this happens with everybody. But I think you make a great point on Jade, though. I feel like she doesn't really have that experience or that formula of the tag team stuff, where she just gets too excited and she starts hitting a bunch of moves and none of it looks very good. So maybe it's more needing more time as the tag team. I'm not sure, but that would make sense, though. when the time comes for them to split up, who would you rather see go heel, Bianca or Jade? I mean, if the crowd turns on Jade, I guess it would be her.
Jade.
But who would you rather see go heel?
I think Jade would be the best. You turn Jade heel. I mean, Bianca at this point, I mean, definitely want Jade to be. They basically want Jade to be a bigger Bianca, and that just at this point, I don't see it happening. I mean, Bianca's smooth, and she can hit all the moves. She looks great. But I think once they eventually break up, Jade would be the heel, and Bianca would still be the babyface. I mean, she's been babyface for a while now, but I mean, I think she fits well in that role. I think Jade as a heel she's bigger, and she's kind of like, you could kind of like work that in more as a heel. Like, Bianca shouldn't be like beating the shit out of her. It should be the other way around.
I wouldn't mind seeing Bianca go heel, honestly, just because she's been a babyface on the main roster for so long. And yes, it works, and they haven't turned on her yet. I mean, there were periods last year where she was so dominant. The crowds were, not a majority of them, but she was getting some boos, the pockets of boos during her matches and whatever. We haven't heard that in a while, so if they turn Jade, that's totally fine, because we know she could work as a heel, character-wise, as seen in her AEW stint. But we haven't seen heel Bianca, man, in like 5 years, 6 years since NXT, so I'm kind of more intrigued by that possibility, but I'm not sure how that would work dynamic-wise with the matches and stuff, kind of like what you mentioned. So it might be better just to go the logical route of turning Jade, but listen, if you want to turn Bianca and have her say, listen, you came in and stole my spotlight, trying to take my momentum away from me, I wouldn't be upset by that either. So they have a couple different ways they can go with it. I guess we won't find out for another little while. They could do the match at SummerSlam. I mean, breaking them up now and having them lose the belts now. But I also think, like I said, there's a pretty distinct possibility they could get the belts back as quickly as Money in the Bank. They put the belts just on Alba and Isla to give them a quick moment, because they weren't pinned either. Were Jade and Bianca. So they could easily regain the gold within 2 weeks if they want to. So I guess we'll find out and see where it goes, and we'll discuss it from there. Bayley beating Piper Niven to retain the WWE Women's Championship. Pretty straightforward stuff here. I thought it was a good match, well-worked match. Piper's, I think, her second biggest opportunity. I know she's been in Women's Rumble. She returned in the Women's Rumble last year. I know she faced Becky Lynch for the then Raw Women's Championship back at the Rumble in 2022. Beyond that, I don't know how many pay-per-view matches she's actually had that were singles matches, but I thought she made the most of the opportunity. The crowd wasn't really as hot for her as they thought they might be, considering she's Scottish. But she had a good showing here, Bayley beating her by the skin of her teeth. Told a good story, and it was the right result with Bayley going on to face Nia Jax at SummerSlam for the championship. So, your thoughts on the match between Bayley and Piper Niven?
I thought it was solid. I thought it was sort of the weakest match of the night, or I guess the tag team match probably was, but like out of the single matches, like you said, I thought they'd probably be behind Piper a little bit more, but then I forgot, like, Bayley's just so over with the UK crowd that they just honestly didn't really care for Piper at all. But I thought she looked well. Like you said, she kind of like dominated the entire match, and Bayley kind of at last hurrah, like slip on a banana peel, win here. I like Piper, just kind of another person that just really haven't pushed her. She's kind of been another tag team half partner and just kind of twisting in the wind there. So I like Piper, but 0 to hero is just not going to happen. And she lost here, but I thought it was still a solid showing for someone who doesn't really normally wrestle one-on-one matches in the big stage, at least.
Yeah, they're probably not going to, capitalize on the push for her from here. I imagine it's right back to doing what she was doing before with Chelsea Green, who also had a, role to play in the match, and I thought she actually did so very well. She was pretty entertaining at ringside, I thought, with the whole Rey Mysterio mask and shit. But, she was good, and the match was good, and, I liked it. And Bayley goes on now, like I said, to face Nia Jax, very likely at SummerSlam for that championship. And then just like that, we were at the main event, Damian Priest, Drew McIntyre for the World Heavyweight Championship. Great match here. Again, despite the heel versus heel dynamic, which didn't really matter in front of this crowd, obviously. Drew is from Scotland. He's Scottish, the Scottish Warrior, obviously, so he was a total babyface here. They worked really well together, had very good chemistry. Damian having a great showing. And props to him, too. I mean, I know the report was that they were high him backstage for working through the quote-unquote injury. And I assume he wasn't selling. I assume he actually did hurt his knee or his ankle or whatever it was, but it wasn't too serious to where he had to, where it's injured. I mean, there's a difference between hurting something and injuring something. I don't think he got injured, obviously. He's, right back on track for Money in the Bank. But he got his leg caught in the rope, and that was kind of a scary spot. And they had to work through it. He was stuck in the rope for a good 60 seconds, I think. The referee couldn't get him free. They cut the camera away. Drew was like, fuck this, I'll get him out myself. Because they even told the story on commentary, I can't win the World Heavyweight Championship if Drew's tied up in the ropes, or Damien's tied up in the ropes. So I like that. We had the obvious CM Punk interference. Now, listen, people are not happy when I said this, but it's true. It's not that Punk interfered. It's not necessarily that, because people, I think, misconstrued what I was trying to say. The fact that Punk got involved doesn't surprise me. What does bother me, though, is that I literally told you last week where Punk even said at the Raw that I went to actually in Hartford about a month and a half ago, he teased being in Glasgow for this show. Drew had to know Punk would be there. I mean, he constantly tweets about him and all this other sort of shit. He had to know Punk would get involved. So the fact Punk got involved and screwed Damien or screwed Drew didn't really bother me. I know, Scotland was crying about it. Oh, we got fucked. It was the Scotland screw job. I mean, yeah, it would have been a cool moment if Drew won. The fact he didn't really bother me because I didn't think Drew would go on to SummerSlam to defend the World Heavyweight Championship anyway if he's going to be facing Punk and Gunther's already the number one contender. That's fine. It was the execution of the finish I didn't like. The camera shot with Punk making the 2 count and then holding it up was great. I thought that was sick. But just the fact that Drew wouldn't see it coming like a fucking idiot, considering he's been talking shit about this guy for months now, and he was the same man who cost him the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania, made him look incredibly fucking dumb. So I didn't really like that. And then someone said, how did he know that he would get involved at that point? How could he not just have backup? Or what would having backup really make a difference? It would have made a difference. I mean, again, you could still have Gallus or something come out or someone like that, or Drew just anticipates Punk being out there, or he attempts to lock him in a fucking closet backstage. I don't know. I mean, they could have done something differently where McIntyre sees it coming, and it still backfires anyway. I just thought the fact he didn't see it coming was so dumb of his character for someone who's much smarter than his opponents most of the time. So, beyond that, though, I thought it was a great match, the logical finish, and it is what it is. So, what's your assessment of the match, and what went down to the end with CM Punk screwing Drew McIntyre out of the World Heavyweight Championship in Scotland?
I thought it was a good match. I love the camera angle of Punk coming in, but it was the whole ending of him kicking him the balls and then Damien just pick him up, hitting him with this finish, and kind of I was like, ugh. I was like, oh, that's not. I mean, similar to what you said, it just made Drew look like an idiot. He knew, he had to know he was coming. He's been talking shit about it for months. I honestly feel I guess Punk screwed him once, I guess he screwed him again, but I don't know. I feel like it kind of left a little taste in my mouth. I love the camera angle. I thought that was all done well, and then kicked him with the balls, picked him up for the side choke slam 1, 2, 3, and that's it. I don't know. I didn't love the finish, and I guess to this point we still don't even know if Punk's even cleared. So are we really getting that at SummerSlam? Is he still going to be out? So I hope that's what we're getting at SummerSlam, because to flesh out even longer, it'd be like Jesus. But I just didn't love the ending and the way they kind of execute. I love the camera angle. I love the 1-2, but it just, like you said, made Drew look like an idiot.
It just made him look like a moron for a guy that's been talking shit about Punk for so long and knew that he would probably be there. I mean, again, they just could have done it differently. But the camera shot itself, like you said and like I said before, was really well done. I thought that was great. So, CM Punk cost Drew McIntyre the World Heavyweight Championship. Now kind of bleeding into our Raw review here. McIntyre comes out on Raw the next night, or 2 nights later, rather. We're expecting a Rampage or a pipe bomb promo, kind of like MJF from a couple of years ago on Dynamite. And we actually don't get that. We have the exact opposite, where he says almost nothing at all. He kind of is at a loss for words, and then he just quits. He just up and quits WWE. I thought the way they shot it was great, with Adam Pearce trying to stop him from walking out, and then they just cut abruptly to commercial. They come back from commercial, you see him talking to Triple H backstage, and he still walks away from Triple H anyway. I thought that whole thing was great. Now, the only aspect of this I'm not a fan of is the fact that Rock had to kind of go public with the fact that Drew re-signed. It probably would have come out anyway. I mean, that was 2 months ago, so it probably would have been revealed since then that Drew re-signed. But it would have worked so perfectly if they played up the story that Drew was not staying, or we didn't know if he was staying. He hadn't signed a new contract yet. And that was it for him. I mean, we would all still assume he was coming back anyway, but it would make it more real, oh shit, his contract is actually up. Does he take time off? Is he leaving? Is this his way out or whatever? Is this his write-off from WWE television? Obviously it's not, because he's sticking around. But your thought on how they followed it up on Raw, was it an intriguing enough follow-up for you, a development on Raw to kind of further the feud between Punk and McIntyre?
Yeah, I thought it was done well. You kind of pointed out that I thought that it probably would have been better if we didn't know he resigned, but I think taking Drew off TV for a little bit won't hurt. And then once Punk comes back, theoretically, before SummerSlam, I'm cleared, I'm back. That's when Drew comes out and just destroys Punk, and then we set up that match for SummerSlam. So taking Drew off TV, I don't think is a horrible idea. I mean, Gunther hasn't really been on TV since he won the opportunity to win at SummerSlam, and I think that's been a kind of breath of fresh air. And I think sometimes getting off TV for a little bit helps, and I think in this scenario it would, because I mean, we don't need to see Drew all over off. There's nothing in the immediate couple of weeks that he's going to be worried about.
Yeah, no, I think the way they did it, honestly, was really cool. And again, we've seen this sort of stuff before, but it's all a matter of how they followed it up and all that other sort of stuff. But you mentioned him coming out and just beating the shit out of Punk saying that he's cleared and whatever. And obviously the match is, I think, penciled in for SummerSlam, as it should be, and not necessarily Money in the Bank. Do you do that angle of what you just mentioned where Drew attacks Punk when he announces he's cleared tomorrow night on SmackDown in Chicago? I mean, you embarrass Drew in his hometown, so now Drew goes out there and embarrasses Punk in his hometown. If they don't do that, I feel like it would make no sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good idea. I didn't even know Punk was supposed to be on SmackDown, so if that's the case, I mean, if he's cleared, then I mean, go for it. I feel like we still don't really know yet. I mean, he is getting involved, so I think you'd have to be some sort of cleared, but I mean, I think that'd be a great spot. Like, he quit, so technically it's not like he's supposed to be specifically on Raw or SmackDown. And Big City comes out and destroys Punk, so I'm down.
Yeah, I feel like that would make sense. Just, return the favor. How does he not go out there and embarrass Punk in front of his family and loved one? Maybe, hey, listen, maybe AJ Lee's out there. Maybe she's watching from the crowd or whatever, and maybe they pop the music. I don't know. I doubt it. But, you could do something like that to kind of start the show, but I feel like that would be the way to go with it tomorrow night on SmackDown, making that show even more must-see than it already was, I would say. Speaking of Punk and McIntyre, one last thing on that. It was reported a couple of days ago that WWE's looking to bring back an old pay-per-view. They brought back a lot of old pay-per-views in recent years. Especially in NXT, they would reenact or revive old WCW concepts. It looks like they might be bringing back the Bad Blood pay-per-view that they only did a few times. They did it in 97, obviously, which is where Kane debuted during the first Hell in a Cell match with Taker and Shawn Michaels on that show. That was back in 97. I don't think they did it in 98. I know they brought it back in 03 and 04, because I know in 03, as you know, obviously, one of the best video packages of the last 20, 25 years, Triple H and Kevin Nash with Mick Foley as the special guest ref, another Hell in a Cell match, and they did another Hell in a Cell match of Bad Blood. That was like their original Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. They did another one of Bad Blood 04 between Shawn Michaels and Triple H. That was 20 years ago. So we haven't had one since. Reportedly, they're looking to bring back the pay-per-view on the exact anniversary of the first ever Bad Blood show and the first ever Hell in a Cell match back in 97 for a Hell in a Cell match. Now, they didn't say what it would be. I would have to think it's Punk and McIntyre, though. I just feel like that would make the most sense. So as someone who kind of, in a way, grew up on Bad Blood back in 03, 04, your thoughts on the reports that the pay-per-view might making a comeback and the fact that McIntyre and Punk would be the perfect main event for the return of Satan's Structure?
No, I think, like you said, it doesn't have to be like, oh, it's November, so bust out War Games. But I think if you build it correctly, it can make sense. And with this feud, I think Hell in a Cell at Bad Blood in October would make sense. So I'm down. Like I said, now that you brought it up, the video package is playing in my head with Triple H and Kevin Nash. God, it's amazing.
I got to go watch it back when we're done here. The whole Headstrong, classic 2003 by Trapped, right? So is that who it's by Trapped? Yeah.
It's by Trapped, yeah.
Yeah, great fucking song, great fucking video package. And the funny thing is, the match isn't even that good. It really isn't. It's one of the weaker Hell in a Cell matches probably ever between Kevin Nash and Triple H. But the video package is great. I always liked Shawn and Triple H the following year, 2004. But obviously, Shawn Michaels and Taker from the first Bad Blood is probably the greatest Hell in a Cell match of all time. And the fact they can kind of run it back on the exact anniversary of the first show on October 5th is pretty fucking cool, so I'm looking forward to that. Also on Raw, though, I mean, again, we've gone this long without talking about it. I wanted to wait on it, but closing Raw on Monday was the biggest thing that anyone's been talking about since Monday, even over the Punk McIntyre stuff and whatever. The debut of the new Wyatt 6 faction, which we knew was coming. They thankfully did it on Monday. They were building to it for months, ever since the night after WrestleMania back in April. And they had the countdown commence on Monday night. We had the new debut of the Wyatt Six, one continuous live shot of all the members being revealed. Uncle Howdy, Ramblin' Rabbit. I don't know if they're going to be using those names, but we had Bo Dallas, Joe Gacy, Eric Rowan, Nikki Cross, Dexter Lumis. 5 members. I would assume the 6th one is Bray Wyatt himself, the spirit of Bray Wyatt, which is cool. A lot of Easter eggs and tributes to Bray during the reveal, which you can kind of pick up on if you watch it intricately, but very up and close and whatever. But I thought it was really, really well done. I thought it was cool. I told you this. I tweeted this on Monday. I have no fucking clue how you followed this up. I mean, it was so cool that I don't know if anything can top it. It's almost like the Fiend debut from 5 years ago at SummerSlam, where nothing he did after that came close to being as cool as the actual Fiend debut at SummerSlam. And, I mean, the follow-up was botched anyway. They immediately launched him into the World Title Program picture. It made absolutely no sense. You're not going to put the World Title on Uncle Howdy, put him anywhere near the fucking top titles, I would think. But the way they did this was cool. Again, like I alluded to earlier, essentially murdering Chad Gable, so obviously he's not actually dead. It would be funny if they waited a week to kill off Ricochet, literally kill him off, Underground style, Lucha Underground style. They did not do that. But I still thought this was really cool. So your first impressions of the Wyatt Six stable that we saw on Monday night?
It was really cool, very well done, very well shot. The ending was great with them all around the lantern. We're here. That's all great. We texted about it yesterday. And, I saw people making comments and people just absolutely trashing them. But, I think this is a legitimate question. Where do you go from here? You kind of highlighted it, the same with the Fiend. Yeah, this was a great reveal and all, but is anything else going to top this? And how does this go into a wrestling angle? And I think Dave Meltzer had made a comment, and I saw a couple people trashing it, and he was I don't think that's it's not a dumb thing to say. How do you then transition this into a wrestling angle? As a movie scene or a reveal, it was amazing. But you kind of highlight it's you're not going to put the world title on them. Who do they even feud with? I know they killed Chad Gable, so maybe we get them in the Alpha Academy. But I guess it's just what's the next steps, and you're realistically also taking people who weren't really pushed at all. They're not they're just going to put a rocket up all these people. It's I don't know. I think it was a great reveal, but the aftermath, which I'll hold judgment on, we'll wait and see. I just don't think it'll top this, and then from people, then it'll be this is disappointing. So I think as a reveal itself, it was sick, but the next steps I'm very questionable on.
You know what's funny is that Fightful reported a couple days before the reveal that apparently they're going to be going a realistic route with the group as opposed to supernatural, and then the first thing that we see from them is them just killing people backstage. I don't know how realistic they're going to get with this. I thought it was fucking awesome, so I'm not shitting on it. But, what does that even mean, though? What does realistic even mean in the sense of a wrestling angle involving 6, or I guess 5, supernatural characters, who are essentially supernatural simply by the fact they're associated with Bray Wyatt, who was already and always a supernatural character to a certain extent, whether people liked it or not. Listen, I said to you this already, and I said this on Twitter. I don't even have any anticipation or any expectation. This is going to be great television. I really am not expecting that. I'm actually expecting it to not be great. I don't want to sound negative from the get-go. I'm just saying I'm going to enjoy it while we can, while it lasts. And I think as long as it's not actively terrible, taking away from the television show, I'm perfectly fine with this as a nod to Bray Wyatt, who couldn't, fully flesh out his ideas before he passed. I think it's a great way to honor him. You can't have stuff on the show just to honor people and then it's fucking terrible. That's the thing. I'm hoping that by having Bo Dallas involved, and even more now than compared to when Bray was around, that they have actual direction. Not that they didn't have direction with Bray before he passed, but that Uncle Howdy stuff was intriguing at first. They dragged that shit on for fucking months. And again, Bray's gone now, so we don't really know, and maybe Triple H will never really talk about it. But I don't know if Bray was hurt, or, because he was working dark matches. We went to SmackDowns while he was around. We were there. You and I were there in Montreal, actually. One of the last appearances he ever made in person on a SmackDown we were there for. He was getting physical. He wrestled. He had the lights out match, which sucked. But, like, I don't know if he was hurt. Like, they were dragging that shit on forever. And then they were going to Bobby Lashley and Bray. Like, that shit was terrible. That was also back when Vince was back in creative, apparently, alongside Triple H. So that might have been part of the problem. But hopefully now they have a better kind of hold on the whole thing, and they can kind of figure out where they're going with it. Because like you said, do you put titles on these people? Like, the fact they were losers before they got repackaged, to me, doesn't really matter just because they have a new lease on life now with these characters. That's totally fine. But, like, are we going to have to wait 6 months to see them in the ring like we did with the Bray Wyatt return back in 2022? I guess that's kind of my question here.
Yeah, I just think, like I said, I think it was a cool debut, but I'm very skeptical on, like, the wrestling. Like I said, I don't think they have to be, like, the greatest thing ever. Like, they don't have to be top guys. Like I think you just kind of be more like a tribute to what Bray really wanted or his vision. But I just feel like in a wrestling angle, it's just going to be very interesting. So I think the reveal was sick. I just think it's going to be very hard to top that. And I think anyone, like, poo-pooing anyone to being like, hey, like, I hope, like, I'm skeptical. Like, I understand, like, it is exciting in the moment, but, like, fleshing it out, you still have to think about, like, how is this actually going to work?
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to be executed, honestly. I really have no idea of where they could possibly go with it. I did see per Fightful that everything they had done in the execution of the debut was done in a way where it was on purpose. So like you said, I don't know if that means they're going to be feuding with Alpha Academy or what. I'm not really sure, but like the people who were on the show and weren't on the show, it was all done by design. I hope they just don't fuck this up. I mean, that's really my biggest thing. Just don't fuck it up. They have a lot of buzz right now, a lot like The Fiend did back in 2019. And The Fiend stuff didn't die immediately. I feel like the first nail in that Fiend coffin was the Hell in the Cell match, which took place 2 months later. So, I don't know really, again, how you follow this up and who they attack next or what they do even. But I feel like, for starters, they have to address it on SmackDown. I mean, if they just go forward with a normal show on Friday and just have... just start with a Money in the Bank qualifier like nothing happened on Monday and no one was murdered or brutally attacked, I feel like that would be a mistake.
Yeah, I agree. It needs to be talked about on SmackDown.
They need to address it in some form or fashion. Last couple quick things for you here. Is Braun Breaker the next Intercontinental Champion after he confronted Sami Zayn on Monday night? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's the direction we're going, and I think he'll be the one to beat Sami.
I think that's probably the right fit, right? Does that mean Sheamus is probably not winning that championship again anytime soon?
Correct.
Are we getting Braun Breaker and Sami in Money in the Bank or a Fatal 4-Way, you think?
I think maybe we'll get the Fatal 4-Way and Sami like beats Ludwig, and then we get. I think you probably wait till Braun to win it at SummerSlam. Honestly.
Okay, so maybe he pins Ludwig in a Fatal 4-Way or something like that.
Maybe Braun hits Ludwig with a spear, and Sami kind of just does like the shit throw through the ropes, throws Braun out, and like he capitalized on the spear, and then Braun kind of has a bitch that he had him beat, and then we get the one-on-one. I
could see that. What were your thoughts on the spear from Monday, where he speared him out of nowhere? Kaiser, that is.
Looked like a Goldberg spear from '98.
We're not talking Who Killed WCW here, are we?
No, but it looked brutal, honestly.
No, it did look great. Rollins returning on Raw again, kind of burying the lead here. There was a lot of stuff that happened this week, but he's back now, ahead of schedule, obviously. He was out for only 2.5 months. Becky said that he underwent knee surgery. I don't know how accurate that is. I mean, I imagine he did. I don't think she was lying, but came back pretty fucking quickly. I think he had a torn meniscus. We found that out in January that he tore it, but had surgery for it. It looked great on Monday, coming back, and he will challenge Damian Priest for the World Heavyweight Championship. I think I smell a title change here, and I'm thinking when he came out, yeah, there's a chance he could win at the pay-per-view. Now I'm in the camp that I think he absolutely is winning that belt, because I think Rollins and Gunther on paper is just a more appealing, like a sexier match for the World Heavyweight Championship than Gunther and Damian Priest, two heels. I think Damian is going babyface at some point, but Rollins is a full-fledged babyface right now, and they already teased Rollins and Gunther back in January. I think that's what we're getting here.
Yeah, I think we're getting Gunther and Rollins as well. I mean, I think it's better than Damian and Gunther, and I think that's just what we're going to get.
I think it could be a better match too, but I also feel bad for Damian, where I feel like we could get a card at SummerSlam where it's Damian and Finn Balor, a match I'm looking forward to, but I just think it's going to be like 4th or 5th down the card. Probably not 5th, maybe closer to 4th, but I think it's Rollins and Gunther above them, McIntyre and Punk, like I mentioned earlier, if Punk is cleared by SummerSlam, Cody and Solo or Cody and Orton, whatever they choose to do. that's at least 4 matches down, and that's not even including the women's matches. Rhea and Liv, perhaps. Maybe not Bayley and Nia would go over that, but, I mean, it would probably be at least 4th or 5th down the card for a guy that was just the World Heavyweight Champion. And again, I feel bad for Damian, but that's probably the best way they can go with it. It was completely overshadowed on Monday's Raw, and rightfully so, because the Wyatt Six stuff was so sick, no pun intended. But Jey Uso did qualify for the men's Money in the Bank ladder match, as well as Io Sky. So we found out for next week's Raw, it's going to be Braun Strowman, Chad Gable, if he's still alive, and Bronson Reed in a triple threat, another triple threat to qualify for the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. We only get 6 men this year and 6 women this year in their respective ladder matches, which I don't mind. Typically it's 8. That's better than 10. That's just way too fucking much. But it's been 7 before. Sometimes it's been usually 8. 6 they haven't done all that often, but I'm totally fine with 6. That's a pretty solid number. I'm just surprised they're going with 6, because in years past, whenever they've done 6, it's usually been like the roster's been smaller or it's just one brand. This is both brands. So that's why I'm kind of surprised they're going with 6, but that's a totally acceptable number. For next week's triple threat for the men, I see Gable. I'm hoping Gable goes over if he's even involved in it. I don't know if he will be. They're probably going to want to have him sell the attack from the Wyatt Six. The guy just can't catch a break. I mean, he loses a Clash at the Castle. He gets squashed by Braun Strowman on Raw, and then he gets killed at the end of the show, seemingly. I don't even know if he's going to be in this match. I hope that he is. It would make sense. It would be a nice consolation prize for him to even be in there. I don't think he's winning by any stretch, but for him to be in the match, it would be cool. Braun could be in there. I'm kind of hoping Gable wins so we get a Braun-Bronson feud. Bronson-Reed. But I feel like a Reed-Strowman feud would make sense kind of coming out of this matchup. I don't know if that's what we get, but that's what I would like to see. For the other matchup, Lyra Valkyria, Kairi Sane, Shayna Baszler, also happening in next Monday's Raw, Women's Money in the Bank qualifier. Lyra, I think, is a pretty safe bet. Kairi Sane is great. Shane is good. I don't see either of those women in the matchup. They're just kind of 2 filler opponents. So I see Lyra Valkyria advancing, maybe even winning the whole thing. I don't think she wins the whole thing. I think they can kind of get back to Lyra and Liv down the road. I thought they might go to that in the interim, but it looks like we're getting Liv and Zelina Vega instead, which is also totally fine by me. Last couple of things here. We saw the Hardy Boys are now free agents, now having left AEW. Matt Hardy left AEW a couple of months back. His contract expired in late March, early April. He's officially a free agent and has been for a while now. He showed up in TNA at the end of April. Jeff Hardy's officially a free agent, having left AEW just about a week ago, actually less than a week ago, becoming a free agent about, I think, a week ago, I think last Friday, and then showing up at TNA's Against All Odds, a pay-per-view or event, whatever you want to call it, later on that night, helping out Matt after the main event. So the Hardy Boys are officially in TNA using the old Hardy Boys music they used in WWE, they used in AEW. I think it's pretty cool. I feel like a run in WWE is inevitable. Now, how long that run would be, I don't know. I don't think they would be as full-time or as active as the Dudley Boys were a decade ago. The Dudley Boys were probably older than the Hardys are now. I'm not exactly sure, but, physically they're not the same in the ring as they were the last time they were in WWE 7 years ago. And even then they were kind of not broken. I mean, I guess character-wise they were, but physically they weren't broken down and beaten up, but they were, definitely slower than they were the last time they were in WWE prior to that, over a decade ago. So in 2024, I'm not sure that they could really have a full-time run in WWE, but one last run for like a full, a final match, a full program or whatever with whoever would be cool. I feel like they can bring value to WWE's tag team division, being as popular as they are still in 2024, being 2 notable names ahead of a Hall of Fame induction. So a TNA run for now makes sense. I feel like they could have their flexible dates going on the independent scene and doing the DNA stuff and whatever, probably recapturing the TNA World Tag Team titles at some point. But eventually in WWE, I feel like, this could be honestly the equivalent of what happened 7 years ago when they left TNA, actually, ironically, and then went to Ring of Honor for a quick stint before then going to WWE. And they were only in Ring of Honor for like a month, but they held in that time the Ring of Honor Tag Team titles, dropped to the Young Bucks over WrestleMania weekend, and then showing up at WrestleMania the following night. Now, I don't think that's going to happen exactly the same way in 2024, but it's very possible that we could see the Hardy Boys back in WWE at some point down the road. Probably before the year is through, if not early 2025. I'll enjoy the TNA run while it lasts. But WWE is now working with TNA. We've seen that in the last month with Jordan Grace showing up in NXT, challenging for the NXT Women's Championship in a great match with Roxanne Perez back at Battleground. Even on Tuesday, we had Frankie Kazarian and Joe Hendry showing up in the NXT Championship #1 Contenders Battle Royal. A great moment. I think it's the most popular video on WWE's YouTube channel, or on socials, whatever, since Mania, which is pretty fucking crazy. Even beating out the Wyatt Six stuff for Monday, which is wild. The Joe Hendry appearance was amazing. So, and he's not even like the greatest guy in the... I mean, Joe Hendry is very entertaining. He's not even the greatest in-ring wrestler, but he's very popular for those that don't follow TNA. He's like a meme, and he has been for a while now. So I'm glad they capitalized that, put him on the show. I tweeted on Tuesday. Some people misinterpreted because they can't fucking read. But, you know, I had made the comment that I can almost guarantee you WWE was not expecting that level of a pop. I didn't say that they weren't expecting a pop. They were obviously expecting some sort of a reaction if people were fucking chanting for him, you know, on the show a week prior, to be in that Battle Royal when Cody Rhodes made his appearance and announced the match for this week's show. They were clearly expecting some sort of a reaction. I just don't know that they expected that level of a reaction. I mean, that place went fucking nuts. That is the loudest reaction I've heard in that NXT arena probably ever. And if not ever, it's certainly in the top 3 reactions. That place went crazy. The most talked about thing on NXT I have seen in quite some time. So I thought it was cool. And I've heard they might have more NXT appearances scheduled for Joe Hendry, as they should. The guy's very entertaining. But, yeah, back to my original point with the Hardy Boys, I think there is a possibility that we could see them even before they go back to the main roster at some point down the road. An NXT run, honestly, might be perfect for them. I don't know how far Florida is from North Carolina. I'm not a geography guy, but if they can stay put in North Carolina and just be flown into Florida every week to do a couple NXT shows, maybe work the NXT house shows, probably not. I mean, having them work the fucking Citrus Coconut Loop or whatever in fucking Florida might not necessarily be necessary. But, you know, work in the TV shows, kind of like what New Day did when they were NXT Tag Team Champions about a year or so ago, and a year and a half ago. Just have them do something similar to that. I feel like that would be pretty cool. The Hardys have never been NXT Tag Team Champions. They've never even once appeared in the NXT arena, neither of them. So, honestly, as part of this TNA relationship, and I know next week we're having a Tag Team Turmoil match on NXT to crown new #1 contenders to Nathan Frazier and Axiom. Having a TNA tag team not only in the match, but win the thing, because they didn't win on Tuesday. Frankie Kazarian and Joe Hendry did not win that Battle Royal on Tuesday night. I feel like that would be the way to go, because I'm not really sure what other tag teams you would, put in that spot. Gallows and Anderson just lost the OC. NXT doesn't really have that deep of a tag team division. So bringing on in the Hardys, and ABC would be cool as well. They're not really doing much currently in TNA. That being Chris Bay and Ace Austin, they're an excellent team as well. So them or the Hardys at some point in NXT, honestly, might not be that far off. So last thing here, Owen Hart Cup predictions. We did find out during Wednesday's AEW Dynamite. We talked about, or I mentioned earlier at the start of the show, I had AEW news. This was about it. I enjoyed Dynamite on Wednesday. I thought it was a good show. Wasn't overly eventful, really not a whole lot to talk about. We'll talk about Forbidden Door here in the show next week as far as predictions go and stuff like that. But we did find out on Wednesday's Dynamite the card for, or not really the card, but the brackets rather, for the men's and women's Owen Hart Cup tournaments, with the difference this year compared to last year and the year prior, that the winners of said tournaments will earn World Championship opportunities at All In coming up at the end of August. So the winner will challenge for the AEW World Championship on that show, and the winner will challenge, the women's winner will challenge, I believe, the AEW Women's World Championship on that show. I mean, I guess it could be the TBS title. Maybe they have a choice. But if the men don't have a choice, I would assume the women don't have a choice either. Maybe they could, I don't know. But I feel like it just makes sense with the women. We had Chris Statlander advance over Nyla Rose on Wednesday. It would just make sense for the women to have Mariah May win the whole thing and have her face Toni Storm at All In. I mean, that was the direction we figured they were going in anyway, and this just makes it even more obvious. So we have Statlander advancing as of last night, beating Nyla Rose. Why Nyla Rose was even in the thing, and she was popular, she got a good reaction, their match was fine, but not exactly a match they needed to revisit, but whatever. She's facing either Willow Nightingale in the next round or Serena Deeb. Clearly it will be Willow Nightingale. Willow Nightingale will lose to Chris Statlander, will get Statlander in the finals. The other side of the bracket, Deonna Purrazzo and Hikaru Shida. I think Purrazzo wins that. She faces Mariah May or Saraya in the next round. I think Mariah May wins that. Mariah May beats Deonna Purrazzo, and then Mariah May beats Chris Statlander in the finals. I feel like that's going to play out exactly like that, and that's totally fine if we get Mariah May in the finals, winning the whole thing, and then at All In challenging for the AEW Women's World Championship. The men's is a little less predictable. Now, Jeff Jarrett even being in the thing is comical, but listen, I totally forgot about the fact that he was a former tag team partner of Owen Hart. They were very close. Maybe the family wanted him in the thing this year. I don't know. I don't know why he wasn't in it last year for that very same reason, because he was in AEW at that point, I believe, last year when they last did the Owen Hart Cup, but whatever. So Jeff Jarrett is in the tournament this year. I mean, if we really want to take this thing seriously as the winner is going to earn a world championship opportunity, it's definitely fucking comical. It makes zero sense. But he's going to be facing a wild card. He's going to get bumped from the first round. It's kind of hard to make predictions for the tournament not knowing who that wild card is. It could very well be Will Ospreay or someone like that. Maybe the Jeff Jarrett match happens next week. I'm not sure. But it's very possible they save that match for Dynamite not next week, but in 2 weeks. Probably not if the finals are coming up in early July, which is fast approaching. But that's probably what I would imagine would happen is, Jeff Jarrett losing to the whoever the wild card is. It could be Will Ospreay. Probably won't be if Will Ospreay's challenging for the World Championship at Forbidden Door. But we have that side, or that match on one side of the bracket. On the same side of that bracket, Jay White and Rey Fenix. Jay White is obviously winning that match. So I'm going to assume that whoever the wild card is facing Jarrett will be a babyface. I thought we might get White and Pac at some point here in the tournament. I don't know if we will. Pac did advance last night, beating Claudio Castagnoli in the main event. He's facing the winner of Shingo Takagi and Bryan Danielson. Obviously, Bryan Danielson is winning that match at Forbidden Door. That should be a great match. Pac and Danielson should be fucking awesome. I'm going to assume Danielson wins. I don't know who the wild card is, though. So that's what kind of throws me for a loop. I could see Danielson winning the whole thing and then facing Swerve at All In. The fact that MJF isn't even in this thing is kind of ridiculous. I don't think he will be, though, because he's already having a match with Hechicero from CMLL on that show at Forbidden Door. So if he was in the tournament, you would think that he would be announced for it by now. It's not like Will Ospreay already has, he already has his World Championship shot at Forbidden Door. So if he does enter, which would be weird, I mean, he would be announced after he loses to Swerve, MJF could be announced right now. So I guess he doesn't want his World Championship back right now. I'm not really sure how that works. Because in AEW, to my knowledge, they don't have automatic rematch clauses. So I'm not really sure why he wouldn't be in the tournament. Samoa Joe as well. He lost the World Championship back in April. He was in the finals 2 years ago. He might have been in it last year. I don't know why he would not be in it this year. That to me... Actually, he was in it last year. He made it to the finals or the semifinals last year before losing to CM Punk, actually. So he's been in it twice. He lost twice. They probably don't want him to lose for a third time. He's not winning the thing. But it just doesn't make much sense that he wouldn't be in here over like fucking Rey Fenix or someone like that. And Joe's at a point now where he's doing the Hook thing. And like he's putting over Hook and whatever as the tag team. But they could still have him in there eating a loss. It's really not that big of a deal. And it would explain why he hasn't gone back after the World Championship since he lost it in April. But that's going to do it for WrestleRant Radio here today for June 20th, 2024. Mr. Marceau had to drop off there towards the end. Had to head into work, so... Mr. Marceau, I appreciate the time. As always, we're getting back here on the show next week to talk Forbidden Door and all the latest in the world of WWE, AEW, and just the world in wrestling in general. If you want to check out new episodes of the show, you can do so every single week on WrestleRant.com, WrestleRantRadio.com, and all your usual podcast platforms. Have an awesome one, folks. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews for Mr. Marceau. We'll catch your ass down the road.
Join Graham GSM Matthews and RJ Marceau every Thursday as they run down their weekly wrestling rants, offer expert analysis, host exclusive interviews, and more. Subscribe today on all your favorite podcast platforms and never miss an episode of WrestleRant Radio.